Welcome to the final part of the Space Invaders tutorial. If you've made it this far, then you should already have a very playable and very fun Space Invaders game. This final session, we're going to really add the icing to the cake. So, we'll start off by improving the front end. At the moment it's a very simple press spacebar. I'd like to see more than that happening. So, in the Manage Game sprite, first of all, add an erase all to the very beginning. That will just ensure that the screen is clear. Now we're going to slightly modify the position where we display press spacebar to move it down to -48, so it's a little bit lower down the screen. On top of that, we're going to add some code so that we can make it look more interesting. We're going to add another receiver of broadcast and wait, and this is going to be wait to start. I'm going to place this in the code at the beginning here. And so what this code will do is it will send out the message and it will then wait until the receivers are finished doing all their code, and then it will continue. So we need the receiver. When I'm waiting to start, first of all, I'll take this area of code out here. So when I'm waiting to start, I'm going to wait until we're not pressing space, then wait until we are, and then wait until we're not. You may have noticed before, if you're playing the game and you hold spacebar down at the end for too long, then it will run straight into the wait for spacebar, and when you release it, it will go straight into the game. This will prevent that happening. This means you have to release the spacebar, then press it, and then release it. I'm going to set a variable for this sprite only called space pressed. It's true or false, so I'll add a question mark. And when I've pressed the spacebar, I'm going to set this variable to true. And I'm going to play a sound effect to say we're starting the game. So that handles the pressing of the spacebar, but not the showing of the sprite. So I'm going to add another receiver for the same message that will display the sprite. Well, I should also make sure that I set the space pressed variable to false before I call it. So before calling wait to start, set space pressed to false. Now the second receiver is going to take care of displaying the press space, but it's going to make it pulse slowly on and off the screen to make it look more interesting. I'm going to need an index variable for the sprite only, and I'm going to set it to 0 at the beginning. I'm going to show the sprite, and I'm going to make sure it appears in front of anything else that's on the screen. So we'll go to the front layer. And I will also make sure it's fully visible because I'm going to be playing with the ghost effect. So I'm going to set the ghost effect to 0 at the beginning, and then I'm going to do a loop until the space press variable is true. So repeat until space pressed equals true. And in here I'm going to increment the index variable by 6 at a time. and use it for setting the ghost effect. So I shall set the ghost effect, and here we're going to make use of a sine wave, a mathematical function that will allow it to gradually appear and gradually disappear. So if I set the ghost effect to 50 plus 50 times sine of index, then that will make the ghost value vary between 0 and 100, but not linearly. It will be a nice pulsing effect. So let's add the hide to the end, so when I have pressed spacebar, that will hide. And now let's see how that looks. So it's nicely pulsing on and off. Press spacebar, game starts. So already that's looking quite nice. But we can make it even better than that. What we're going to do is make it so that if you don't press spacebar for a while, it actually starts playing the game itself. We're going to need another wait to start receiver. And in this one, we're going to set a variable, we're going to make a variable called fake game. And it's a true or false, and it's for all sprites. And if I'm in the front end and it's playing, it's not a real game, it's a fake game. We need to know that. So while I'm waiting to start, we'll say fake game is true. We're going to make sure it's displaying scores. So we'll update the HUD, which stands for heads up display. And then we're going to do a forever loop here. Note that when I have forever loops, I usually have a way out of them. There's usually some script in there that says stop this script. But for now, we'll have a forever loop, which will start by broadcasting to initialize game. What that does, effectively, it removes all the sprites from the screen. Then I'm going to reset the timer. And I'm going to repeat for 4 seconds. So repeat until timer is greater than 4. And all that I'm going to do here, for those 4 seconds, I'm just going to check if the spacebar has been pressed. So during those 4 seconds, if space pressed is true, then we'll stop this script because we're starting the game. But if we continue past there, we haven't pressed the space in those 4 seconds. Now comes the interesting part. We're going to broadcast initialize game, just to make sure everything's clear. And then for 30 seconds, well, we're going to reset the timer. And then we're going to loop for 30 seconds. So repeat until, I'll copy this bit of code, duplicate, until the timer is bigger than 30. And in that time, I'm going to make use of the game loop that we've already made. So our game loop updates the player, updates the invaders, updates the sprites, checks the collisions, and updates the HUD. We can make use of that. So I'm going to broadcast update player, but it's going to be slightly different. I'm going to broadcast update AI player, because it's not going to be the actual player controlling the base, it will be the computer. And then, as before, I'll just update Invaders, update the other sprites, and check for collisions. I don't need to update the HUD because we're not going to change the score or the lives when we're in a demo mode. And then at the end of this, in the loop, I need to say, if we press a space, then we'll stop the script. So effectively that's running the game, but with the computer controlling the player. Going back to the original section of code, so we're setting space press to false, waiting to start initialize the game. I'll actually have to set the position of the sprite slightly earlier, so I'll do that right at the beginning. And when the actual proper game starts, then we need to set fake game to false, because we're playing the game properly now. Okay, so now let's hop into the Invader sprite. Not many things to change here, but in the check collision script, we don't want this score to change if it's a fake game. So we want, if fake game is false, then we can change the score. Otherwise, just don't change it. And one other thing in here, when we move the invaders, if the invaders land, let's play a sound effect of invaders landing. Okay. Now let's move into the player sprite. In the collisions, we don't want to lose a life if we get blown up when we're not really playing. So again, we're going to add a little check in there, if fake game equals false, or if it's a real game, that's when we will allow it to change the lives, otherwise we won't. And the final thing, we want an update AI player, which is going to be very similar to the normal update code, to the point where I will copy this across. I will just duplicate the update player, change it to update AI player. There are going to be some differences though. For instance, we're going to add a new variable called AI direction. For this sprite only, when we initialize the game, we're going to set AI direction to a random number. You can either be moving left, which when you press the left arrow is -4 pixels at a time, staying still 0 pixels, or moving right 4 pixels at a time. So set AI direction to something times 4, where the something is a random number between -1 and 1. So AI direction will either be -4, 0, or +4. Now back in this code, we're going to make it so that it randomly changes direction, but it doesn't do it too often. So if a random number between 1 and 40, we'll say, equals 1, then we'll set a new AI direction. So I'll just copy that block over, doing the same thing again. And we'll push that in there. Now we're not going to use the arrow keys. What we're going to do is we're going to change X by AI direction. And we're going to say if you've reached the edge of the screen, then pick another direction. So we'll check the absolute value of the x position, and we're going to say if it is a greater than 220, then we've reached the edge of the screen. So we will then inverse the direction, so it's pointing in the opposite direction. So we'll set AI direction to 0 to minus AI direction. And we shall change x by that amount. So if we've gone too far, then make sure he moves back a little bit. And now we'll make it so that he can fire a missile when he wants to. So if, again, random intervals, so similar to this code, duplicate that, make it slightly more often than you change direction. If it's a random number between 1 and 20 equals 1, then I'm going to broadcast a missile. A lot of this other code is going to go in a minute. So we don't need any of this keyboard code. And if he reaches the edge of the screen, he's just going to swap directions. So if he reaches the right hand side, he's going to start moving left and vice versa. Now when we're exploding, we're going to say, well, we never want the game to be over. So when the explosion counter is 80, we're not changing the number of lives. So this code is irrelevant. It's just going to carry on playing. And that should get the front end working. Let's have a look on full screen. Press space to play. We're not going to press anything. And it starts playing itself. And we'll do that for 30 seconds or until we press space, in which case I've started again. So that looks excellent. The last thing I'm going to do here is the cloud high score, which you can only do if you're not a new scratcher. So all we'll do for this is a variable, make a new variable, call it high score, make it a cloud variable. If you haven't got this option, then you'll have to leave this bit of the tutorial. If you have, continue. At the beginning of this forever loop, sorry, I'm in the manage game code. At the beginning of this forever loop, in the green flag section, we're going to set high score to whatever the cloud high score is. We're going to do it here because the cloud high score could be changed by other people while you're playing, so we'll do it before it goes to the attractor mode. We'll set the high score, and then at the end, down here, we'll just say if the game's high score is bigger than the cloud high score, we'll set the cloud high score to equal the game high score. So if you've beaten the cloud high score, it gets set to your new score. Put that in there, and that is the cloud high score working. And that is the complete game. Let's go back to a full screen and let's play it. I'm not going to press anything, I'm just going to watch the attract mode. So it should do this for 30 seconds. Not the cleverest AI, but still pretty effective. And after 30 seconds, which should be coming up soon, we'll go back to simply saying press space to play, which we'll do for 4 seconds and then go back to this mode. We'll do this forever until the spacebar is pressed, at which point we can play our game. So that is a full game of Space Invaders. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Hope you enjoy the game. Please feel free to leave comments and let me know what areas of the tutorial you liked. If there were any that you didn't like, please subscribe to the channel and then you will be notified whenever new videos or tutorials are released. Keep on scratching and enjoy.